cut at least 200 million nerve fibers, and the people are still look like ordinary folks, you know. I call it social ordinariness.
When you meet a split brain patient on the street, you really can't tell them apart from a normal person. But when you go into the lab, you can do some very simple tests to see that there is something unusual.
In the laboratory, researchers were able to restrict information to just one side of the patient's brain. In this test, filmed 35 years ago, the patient, Nicola, is feeling numbers with only one hand. She cannot see what she is feeling. One side of Nicola's body and brain knows what the number is. The other half does not. When asked to draw the number, she guesses incorrectly. This clearly indicated that each half of the brain was not communicating the information to the opposite side of her body. Quite literally, Nicola's left hand did not know what her right hand was doing. Other split brain tests relied on the fact that the human ability to process speech usually lies entirely in the left hemisphere of the brain. Restricting information to the right hemisphere only meant that patients could not say what they had seen.
There are some dramatic demonstrations of the split brain that show that one side reacts emotionally and the other side doesn't know why. One time we flashed a picture of a naked woman to the left visual half field, to the right hemisphere of this split brain patient. She blushed, she became very embarrassed, and she didn't know why. When you asked her, why are you embarrassed? She said, I have no idea.
Pull it down, make sure you can't see. Put a hand out here. I'm going to put something in your hand. Okay. Let's try the left hand first.
35 years on, Joe Bogan continues to run experiments with Nicola. By blindfolding her and placing an object in her left hand, he restricts awareness of the object to the right side of her brain.
Some kind of a...
A what?
It wasn't a screw.
Try the other hand.
Oh, jeez.
Put it out where the camera can see it. What is it?
Oh. That's a key.
All right.
How come I said a pencil?
Try that.
Nicola cannot describe what is in her left hand.
Is it hard or soft?
It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Is it round or square?
It's square.
Can't tell if it's round or square?
Square. Feels square to me. But what is it? Oh, it's a marble.
All right, well, let's try a little something else a little bit harder. Try this.
Yeah, that's hard.
What is it?
These tests prove that the two sides of Nicola's brain cannot communicate.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't... It's...
Can you open it and close it?
Yeah, what is it?
Now see you close it. You got it open. No.
God, wait a
Here it is.
minute.
I'll stick it back there.
What?
Here you are. See?
The California team proved that communication between the two hemispheres took place through the corpus callosum. Therefore, the function of the corpus callosum was that of a neural superhighway.
Can't be a bottle.
Well, put it in the other hand. Tell us what it is.
It's a safety pin. Why did I say a bottle?
I don't know.
No.
Maybe you want a bottle.
In the California series patients, that highway had been cut. Although they appeared completely normal, the two halves of their brains could no longer talk to one another. This explained why they had problems with right and left. But these experiments in disconnection were about to connect to another scientific study happening on the other side of the Atlantic. Joe Bogan had read a French medical paper which gave details of a mysterious disorder. It described a patient whose hand was acting independently of the rest of her body. The paper termed this la main étrangère. Bogan immediately recognized this as being similar to the disorder he had seen in his patients. In both his operations and in the case reported in France, they denied ownership of their hand. Laura had problems while driving. Her left hand grabbed the wheel of her car and tried to throw it out of control. It seemed to have a will of its own. Her case obviously had something to do with the corpus callosum. Could this be the same disorder described in the French paper?
One of the things they described was what they called la main étrangère. And the question is how to translate that from French into English. So when I wrote a chapter for some people in a book that came out in 1975, I translated alien hand. When I look back now, some 20 years later, I don't think that's a very good name for it. I think it should be called the autonomous hand, because what it means is that the hand behaves in a manner which is autonomous. That is, the hand does things in the behavior is coordinated, it's seemingly purposeful, and yet the individual disclaims responsibility for the behavior of the hand. Says, I'm not doing that, my hand did that.
Well, this left hand is my bad hand, and it doesn't deserve any credit, so I call it my it.
A hand that, even as Larry speaks, refuses to obey him.
That's a good example of how bad it can be.
Since my two hands oppose each other often, I named my right hand after my brother Skip because he's very intellectual. And I named my left hand after my brother Vern because he's very volatile. This is Vern and this is Skip. Because I can control the right one far better than the left.
Alien hand syndrome was indeed a form of disconnection syndrome. The key was the corpus callosum. But even as they arrived at this conclusion, another tantalizing question emerged. If a split brain meant two independent hemispheres, did it also mean two independent identities?